What's going on, everyone? It's Simon, and today we're talking about how I get in and out of some of these places I go. One of the questions I get asked most frequently on social media is how I get in and out of countries, what it's like, what kind of visas do you have to have, what kind of paperwork has to be done, so on and so forth. And quite frankly, there's no easy answer for that. Every country has their own set of rules, their own process for doing visas. And I wanted to take a couple minutes and try and demystify a little bit to give you guys an idea of just how different it is getting into different countries. So I pulled up a variety of different countries I've been to and that have different types of process for applying for a visa like some of them have visa on arrival, some of them have you send your passport to the embassy to get your visa before you leave. Some you don't even need a visa. And so it really drastically changes, and it depends on if you're going there to work or not work, and so on. So it's one of those things that there's no real straight, like, here's what you do. So we're gonna take a look at the country of Mali, DR Congo, Ethiopia, Thailand, Senegal, and Uganda. And that gives us a little variety because each one of these countries does it very differently. So I'm going to pull up the computer screen and we're going to walk you through a little bit of what it's like. So we're going to bounce back and forth between the computer and myself talking. So we're going to start with Mali because this is one of the most frequented areas of the world that I've been. Burkina Faso and Mali are the two countries I've spent the most number of trips in, and probably the most time at this point. And they have very similar visa process. So it's one that makes it so that you can get an idea of one, it's pretty similar to the other, but you do have to apply for them separately, obviously. So as you see right here, we're on the Malian embassy's website. And it's really easy. You just Google search whatever country you're going to and visa, whatever. So being a US citizen, it makes it really straightforward, as the visa fee for a US citizen is $131 no matter what, and you're actually applying for a 5-year multi-entry visa, which is literally like, that is what it is when you're a US citizen. And it's the same thing for Burkina Faso. And what you need to have is a valid passport photos, and this is interesting for me that they want you to glue them on the application. Some people just want them paper clipped on. It varies depending on the country. 2 copies of the application form, that's pretty standard. And also 2 passport photos is a standard request as well. And then a copy of your yellow fever certificate. So what that is it's this yellow card that comes from your doctor after you get the vaccination. Mine is old, so it's falling apart, but it basically just tells them that you have the yellow fever vaccine, and so you're not going to get yellow fever if you're in the country. That is a risk in a lot of parts of the world, and pretty much this always stays in my passport. That way I always know right where my yellow fever card is. And my card actually has all of my immunizations on it. However, the big one that a lot of countries, especially in Africa, care about is yellow fever. And then depending on the type of visa you're applying for Mali, you have to have your plane tickets. And then if you continue to scroll down, how you have to pay for it is either a money order or a cashier's check. That's a pretty standard thing as well. And it's a non-refundable thing, so you know that when you send them the money, it's going to be gone. You can either go to the embassy in DC, or you can mail it in. I mailed it in myself because I didn't want to drive down to DC for this one when I took care of this visa application, as I've got one of these in my passport. Next, we're going to go to the DR Congo, and the DR Congo is a very different country when it comes to getting in and out of. And you'll see right here that there's a lot more paperwork involved from it. So it's one copy of your application form, one passport style photo, which again, every country is slightly different, the payment, invitation letter from your host. This is a very, very critical one. And then depending on the type of visa you're going in with, the purpose, yellow fever, again, pretty standard. Copy of your flight itinerary. I've seen that happen. It varies drastically what they want. Passport copy and copies of previous DRC visas. That is one that is an interesting one, which if you have an older passport that you had been in the country, so like my passport got renewed in 2019, but I went to DRC in 2017, I'd have to make sure I scan a copy of that visa. And then the prepaid return envelope, and that's, again, you'd send this to the embassy in New York. And the way that the Congo does it is they actually scan your paperwork and send it to Kinshasa, deals with the paperwork in Kinshasa, and then they send it back to the US. Then we're gonna go over to Thailand and Senegal, which, while they're on drastically different parts of the world, they're pretty similar in the way that they have it. So being from the US, they have these ones I'm on the travel.state.gov for the US Department of State. This is just easiest for me because this is an easy way to find out what is going on. And they'll give you an alert on the Department of State's website of things that you should be careful of when you're traveling to these countries. As you can see, another kind of standard thing is that a lot of countries want you to have at least 6 months of passport life left after your expected exit from the country. And the reason for that is in case something happens while you're in country and you get stuck there longer, they want to make sure your passport is still valid. That's pretty straightforward. Thailand, you actually don't need a visa, and you literally just get stamped if you're there just touring, that kind of thing. It's pretty similar for Senegal. They call it a visa, but from the US, you don't actually have to pay a fee, or at least I didn't when I went in 2017. We'll pop down here, yeah. And it's pretty standard that they're gonna want you to have your yellow fever vaccine, and sometimes they will ask you for proof of it, sometimes they won't. Burkina Faso, before you can even go into customs, they ask you for your yellow fever card. So it's a pretty standard thing having the yellow fever. Now we're gonna go over to Uganda, and Uganda is different because they have actually gone to a digital system. So you actually apply for everything online, and that's a pretty common thing in some of the more developed African countries. It's starting to take over. Ethiopia is working on integrating one. However, for the journalist visa, it's easier to just do a paperwork, like the hand paperwork, and send it in. And it's a pretty straightforward process. We'll pull up what it takes to get a visa. And there you go. So that gives you an idea. It's not necessarily the cheapest. Single entry is, yeah. So that's Uganda, and down here they show you all of the different requirements for what you might need. Whenever I'm traveling, I actually carry extra copies of my passport photo. That way, if I do run into a situation, I have those ready to go. And I do not keep those in my passport in case my passport gets stolen. So the last one we're gonna do is Ethiopia. And the reason I want to talk about Ethiopia is because it was interesting, because a lot of times situations that I've run into, I'm usually just going in on a regular visa. They don't specify specifics. A visa is a visa is a visa. And the Ethiopia is a little different, where you've got your tourist visa that you can do either online or on arrival. Then they've got different types of work visas. And so they actually have a special journalist visa, which is what we had to go in with, because we had a lot of equipment for the recent project with Yezel and Minch. So we actually had to do this, which ended up having a lot more paperwork involved that took a lot longer and a lot more headaches to get everything sorted out. And I got it sorted out thanks to having a fixer in country, but it's one of those that we didn't know exactly what we were getting into, but thankfully we were able to get it worked out in time. So this just gives you an idea of what it looks like. The journalist visa, you have to have recent passport photos, passport applicant has to have at least 6 months, written application by the inviting institution. So basically it's just a letter from the company that you're working with saying what you're doing, why you're there with a camera. And some of the things that are actually not listed on this website that are also required is a list of all your camera equipment going in and as many serial numbers as possible. If it's a rental year, then they just try to do the best with it. As much of a pain as it was the easiest time I've ever had dealing with customs. They didn't give us any hassles, they didn't give us any issues. It made up for all the headaches that we had getting the visa itself. And a lot of times the visa applications are a pretty straightforward process. However, when you are doing camera operating and stuff like that, it does get interesting as you change countries. So that's some of the nuances that we have to deal with in this wonderful field. A lot of times as a tourist though, you can get in with the tourist visa. If you're just going there to like sightsee and that kind of thing, it makes it a lot easier. You can either do it on arrival, whereas if you're really doing what I was doing there, where we had like 9 cameras, 15 lenses, that kind of thing. Just a lot more paperwork involved because obviously we're doing a lot more. That's kind of a high level overview of the different types of visa applications that you might run into, the visa process. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'd love to answer them to the best of my ability. Be sure you hit the subscribe button so you know when the next video comes up. And other than that, have a great week. I'll see you guys next time.